Hello everyone, it's Infinity Gamer here, and I'm here with some very late December releases. But Infinity Gamer, it's almost March, and you're only just talking about December releases. Well, it's not entirely my fault. It mostly is, but it's not entirely. I didn't get the really amazing box of goodies that I'm about to run through with you until tail end of January. The fact that I've let it slip to mid to late February, yeah, that's not entirely my doing. But we're going to launch in with some really cool units, because in December we actually saw quite a lot of cool stuff drop, and even though this is a terribly late video, I still think it's worth doing because a lot of things in here might surprise you. The first one, and this is one that actually surprised me, which is why I'm leading off with it, is the Kibervolk Patrol. There's some cool lore around this, which I'm going to jump into as well, and also look at some of the unit profiles. So let's maybe do the lore first.
The primary mission of the Kibervolk Patrol is to provide extra security to safeguard high-value military facilities, as well as to protect all personnel and classified assets in any government and diplomatic facilities that may be vital to Ariadna's national security. Operations-wise, this unit is ready to carry out rapid deployments in order to immediately enhance security at any military or government facility in the Helios system. And thanks to Cosmoflot's support, it can also be deployed as a rapid reaction security force to other systems. The Kibervolk Patrol remains highly prepared to conduct these short-term contingent operations, and the Dozers train constantly with their cyber antipodes to strengthen their bond.
Okay, that's enough lore from an AI-generated voice. That sounds a lot better than me. But the Kibervolk Patrol, obviously Cyberfolk is the sort of origination of the name, Volk being very similar to the Germanic word Volk. At least that is my interpretation of it. The model itself, which you're seeing there, so what I'm about to say is not a surprise because you've probably already seen it roll out on the table. Mixed material for the Kibervolk itself, which surprised me because my assumption with how Corvus Belli were moving with a lot of their model creation was that large units, S5 and above, are going to be pretty much exclusively Psyocast. So the fact they decided to do a bit of metal and a bit of Psyocast for this is incredibly interesting. The human in there is a Dozer, so yeah, many people will be familiar with that if you've played Ariadna or if you have played against them. But the Dozer comes in 3 versions, and it only comes as a KVP version, which is part of the Kibervolk sort of patrol unit. So we've got 3 points vary from 11 to 14, so not a huge amount of difference. You've got light shotgun decharges and gizmo kit on the 11-point version. 12-point version is an SMG with decharges and gizmo kit. And then the most expensive, the 14.1, comes with the... Then we go into the Kibervolk, the big cybernetic dog warrior itself, which is super cool. And as the lore explained, part of its role was to sniff out impersonators, and it actually gets a profile to do that with biometric visor, which 2 versions here got the 10-point and the 12-point. 10-point has a chain colt and has the trench hammer, the shock CC weapon at a PS4, so quite high damage there. And because it has CC attack +1 burst, that's going to be doing quite a lot in there. And then we've got the chest mine and the crazy koalas, and then the same CC loadout. So you're basically getting the... Now the chest mine is on the model. You'll see that in the unboxing, the whole very typical Ariadna front towards enemy type thing, but still mounted on your chest. Then as part of the unit profiles, we also get courage, which is super interesting. Dodge, +2 inches, dogged, as you would expect, big puppy, and mimetism -3, but also sensor, reinforcing how cyber Ariadna's moving. If you are familiar with Ariadna, they are typically positioned as the technologically impaired faction. So they don't have the hacking, they don't have a lot of those cool fancy tools. But what I think I'm loving with this as a bit of a standalone is that anti-tech approach. You might not have hacking yourself, but that has always been a bit of a strength of Ariadna because it's not easy for you to hack them, or you can't disable what they're trying to do through contronic means, which has always been quite a cool feature. This is actually taking it to a bit more of an extreme where it's not, you can't hack me, but if you're bringing tech to the table, I actually have tools here that can negate that. And I think that's super cool. And for worst case, what is it? 26 points is the most expensive you're going to spend on the Kibervolk Patrol. I think you're going to be seeing a lot of these on the table, and they are potentially going to be quite irritating in a way, because the Kibervolk itself is a 6/6 move. And that's quite impressive. It's very good at CC. Obviously, it has no BS whatsoever. So you've got to play this incredibly strategically. By no BS, sorry, BS2. I've realized that was misleading, but effectively nothing. But I think this is something where if it's going to be played well, aggressively, run up the field, probably behind something that can actually defend it, then it's going to be very dangerous. What are your thoughts on the Kibervolk? Do you think it's an aggressive, rabid cyber demon? Or do you think it's just a misunderstood puppy that maybe has a small case of rabies? Keen to hear your thoughts in the comments. Next up, I'm going to be talking about the latest hot sauce, and that is Shinden Butai and Kestrel Colonial Force. This is the Beyond Operation Soundtrap expansion pack. So if you did buy Operation Soundtrap, and either you or a buddy or yourself, because I'm collecting both guiltily, need additional forces, then this is definitely the set to get. 7 minis included in this set, as you'll likely see in that unboxing. We've got the Wild Parrot is the small little thing, which is an option on the Blink. So let's go through the JSA options first. First up, we've got the Taishin Guntai. Now this is the hacker version that is in there. So within the profiles, you'll see that there are 2 hackers. Obviously, with anything to do with Corvus Belli and Infinity, you can proxy this as any Taishin Guntai, and in fact, any S2 that you like. So don't stress too much about WYSIWYG if you are going into Infinity fairly new. So this is a hacker. You could run it as the hacking device version or the killer hacking device version. Both either of those are boarding shotgun and decharges. So what you're actually seeing in terms of the weapon loadout and stuff would actually be spot on for what you need. Although saying that, the normal Taishin also is a boarding shotgun. So wouldn't be too different from just the standard version. So if you are only going to buy one Taishin, although I don't necessarily think that's a device or a good idea, then this is a pretty good one. Has some really cool stuff. Combat jump with parachutist, courage, dodge, martial arts level 1, stealth, and super jump, jet propulsion. So the role that this would probably play in an army is objective grabbing. I think that would mean that you would lean towards the hacker or the forward observer one, because if you're playing any mission where there's consoles to get, or if a specialist needs to do something, then actually having a parachutist coming from the side of the table at any point, other than the enemy deployment zone, in this instance, or combat jumping in if you're feeling bold. It's only a PH12, so no, that's how I would be doing this. I could easily come in on the side, get a console, and do stuff. Now, obviously, the killer hacker, I say obviously, because that's typically how I think of it. But the killer hacker is a safer option in this regard, because if you bring in the hacking device, then a killer hacker on the table could potentially kill you quite with Trinity. But the killer hacker is the safer option because you can walk in, you are still a hacker specialist who can still do consoles, but you don't have that vulnerability of being able to be killer hacked back. In saying that, you may have a different role in mind for this, in which case the hacker device could be coming in and mobilizing a tag or taking out a really annoying ARO remote or anything like that. So depending on your role, either could be great. The model is, as we would come to expect with modern generation Corvus Belli, is fantastic. So let's jump into a new, points. So you're looking at, cheapest one is 19 points, the most expensive one is 23 points. 0.5 SWC tax on the killer hacker, but not on the normal hacker, interestingly. Then within the JSA pack, we have the Kuriyami Ninja, which looks brilliant. Doesn't that look like such a cool? I love the rooftop. Reminds me of the old Yujing Ninja, which was on that rooftop and looked amazing. This is of a similar thread. I'm loving that they're bringing that into JSA because that's exactly what you would expect to see. Kuriyama Ninjas, I have played these a couple of times. I do like them. The Bang Bong +4, quite useful. Courage Dodge, Hidden Deployment. I'm loving Hidden Deployment in JSA. A bit disappointed that it doesn't affect that command token pulling, but that's a different story. Infiltration, Martial Arts level 2. We've got Mimetism -3, Stealth, Super Jump, Surprise Attack, Terrain Total. So very useful and reasonably priced too. It's supposed to be the hacker, not that you can tell because of the pose. It's got a light shotgun, which might be the only way that you can really tell. And then SMGs are on the other 2. All of them have viral mines. They're very cool. I actually took the mine layer. I actually took both. I took the mine layer version in one game, and then I took the hacker version, both of them in hidden deployment, popped them out near a console, had a camera token that slowed down my enemies. It was great fun. I have a lot of time for the Kuriyami Ninjas when I'm playing JSA. Probably won't have a lot of time for them when I'm not playing JSA. Then the third JSA unit in here is the Shizoku Kogeki Tai. That has Berserk, Courage, Dodge +2, Frenzy, Immunity Shock, Martial Arts level 3, Mimetism -3, and Stealth. Really nice unit profile there. It's got 6-2 movement, which helps it move. It's got really good CC. It's got good BS, like 13, which is normal, but the PH is 14, Armor 5, BTS 6. So very durable unit for a Structure 2, and it's got 2 Vitality. So it doesn't look like it's super beefy here in the model, but it actually has huge amounts of durability, and I quite like it. There was, I think, a little bit of confusion because I don't think the FAQ has dropped, but it's been mentioned on the forums, is that previously the Shizoku strategic deployment version wasn't available in the fire teams. F2 FTO, which is the APHMG, which is the one that is in this box, and the heavy rocket launcher +1 burst are both available in the Butai fire team. But now we have the Shizoku strategic deployment is available in the Seiyo fire team, whereas I don't think it was available a couple of weeks ago when I first looked, because I thought it was odd, because strategic deployment, if you're unfamiliar, enables everything that's in the fire team to essentially gain forward deployment. And that seemed odd when it wasn't actually able to be put in a fire team. That seems to have been rectified as far as I can see now. The heavy rocket launcher +1 burst is such a good option to be taking. 38 points though, so slightly expensive, and pales into comparison with the unit we're about to talk about, which is the Blink team, the first in the Pano Kestrel Colonial Force expansions. The model that's actually in here is, I think, the Blink you want to take, which is the X-Visor heavy rocket launcher PS5 with Wild Parrot, only 28 points. It's got an SWC tax of 1.5, so that is not insignificant. Has camouflage, has hidden deployment, has mimetism -6, stealth, and surprise attack. If you're playing JSA, you'll be familiar with the Raiden. If you've played against them, you'll be familiar with the Raiden. The Blink is a similar thread, but I think in many ways slightly better. The model is so casual and cool, like just chilling on a rock, just going, yeah, I know I'm going to kill you. I'm just waiting for when it happens. It has a decent CC of 15. Now, I know we've just been talking about JSA, so CC of 15 doesn't sound like a whole heap, and when you've only got a CC weapon. But you shouldn't really be getting into CC with this model. You've got mimetism -6. How I would be playing this is I'd be sitting it in hidden deployment. Most people would expect it to be there, but it's going to be enough of a deterrent for people to not run a fire team out into the open. If you do reveal in first turn, which happens when I use the Raiden in JSA, is that very often it will be revealed very early into the first turn, and it's sitting there like a bit of a lemon for the rest of the turn. The advantage that you have here with the Blink team is that mimetism -6. That's going to take a really focused unit to remove it. Obviously, you're looking at something with MSV2 or better, but also with a good ranged weapon. So obviously it has to have a multi-sniper. They exist, obviously, but there might have to be some positioning to get it into place, and you might have something else accompanying this that could be going against it. And then the fact that you have X-Visor means that range isn't going to be a huge issue for you if it manages to like slightly outrange you. Obviously, you do have the multi-sniper rifle version at your disposal if you want to, but I feel like without the MSV, it wouldn't fit into my typical role of a multi-sniper, which is to sit as an AR row and sit there in the hope that you're seeing through smoke, you're picking off things. I would rather have the heavy rocket launcher in hidden deployment. So that's me. That's my view of the Blink. Having not actually played KCF at all yet, but it is going to get heavily played very soon. Then we jump into the next unit, which is the Firefly Clandestine Demo Squad. I love it. Albedo -6. So if your opponent does have that MSV, which could be shooting through smoke, it could counter that mimetism -6 that we've just been talking about with the Blink. Albedo's not going to care. It's going to be going out there and just going, I'm Albedo -6. I'm BS attack, saving roll -1. I'm an NCO. I'm immunity to shock. I've got terrain total. And this has some great units as well. So the version that's in here, paramedic. I typically gravitate towards mine layer profiles when they've got infiltration or forward deployment, but that doesn't mean that's the approach to be taking. It does have the decharges. It does have an armed turret with a marksman rifle, which is quite fun. Then the engineer just has AP mines. Chain of command could be quite cool to take, depending on how you're running your lieutenant. I have looked at a couple of those lieutenant options, and I think I might end up having to use a chain of command if my lieutenant is being quite aggressive. But then the fact that this has NCO means that I might also use this quite aggressively. And the hacker could be good for objectives, and a heavy rocket launcher could play a kind of similar role to the Blink, but maybe not quite as aggressively, or maybe quite aggressively if they've got an MSV unit sitting up there as an ARO piece, and you're like, you know what, I'll take my Albedo heavy rocket launcher to go and deal with that. So could be quite cool. I think I'm loving the idea of KCF because of the versatility that exists there in just straight gunfights. JSA is proving to be quite nuanced, and I'm not a nuanced player, so I like the fact that KCF is supposed to just hit them over the head hard with a hammer. And then the final unit that we've got in this Beyond Sandtrap is the Hetkari Shooter. BS Tech -3, which is nice. It's got Conduct Instinct itself and Marksmanship, which is going to negate cover, which is very cool there. We've got another missile launcher. I'm noticing a bit of a theme here with Pano. 2 missile launcher profiles. They've got AP SMGs because why not? So that if you do get close to a tag or something heavy, go for it. This is 2 lieutenant profiles, the missile launcher and the multi-red Fury. We've then got 2 profiles that aren't lieutenant that have exactly the same loadout. So not really going to give away if there's a lieutenant option, which I quite like there, and same points and same SWC with any. So very much play that to your strategy. Now, this next edition in the December release isn't going to get the time on this video that it deserves because it's going to have to get its own video. And that is the Essentials box. So Code 1, for those of you that want to go down memory lane with me, was a fantastic introduction to Infinity, which solved a big problem that I personally had when I came in at N3, which was that there wasn't an introduction version of the game that was easy to grasp, that was stepping stones into complexity and building up. Code 1 was a fantastic system for that. It scaled back the game. It used entirely minis that were in the main game. I feel like Corvus Belli could have brought Code 1 into N5 and it still be fine. They haven't. They've gone Essentials. And I think, I don't know, and this is my assumption, is that they're basically saying N4 is ready for you to be playing as a beginner, but what we can do is we can give you a path to full play. Whereas I think some of the comments I saw about Code 1 was like, I've been playing Code 1, can I play M4? Is it the same game? Is it going to be too complicated? There was a perception that Code 1 was a different system and then M4 was almost like an advanced elite system. And maybe in order to combat that, what Corvus Belli have done, have gone, this is similar but different. It's going to be a stripped down rule set. It's going to be more basic guides for how to play. But effectively, you're learning the main game. You're learning N4. You're just doing it in a staggered and staged approach so that eventually you can step up into the full game, which is N4. So you're going to get some models. You're going to assemble them so that you learn what models are like. You're going to get some terrain. You're going to get some data cards. And this is why this actually deserves its own video, is because I'm going to waffle and I'm going to stop waffling. But the cards is something that some people would actually produce. I've actually got a set in a drawer over there from when I taught someone how to play. I actually just printed off, like, this is how you use orders. This is this unit. And the Corvus Belli are just doing that straight out of the box. So without the waffling, that's effectively what's happening here. The Essentials set is very important, I think, to getting more people into M4. I think it's a step in the right direction from a marketing standpoint and trying to position how you learn about it. That's all I'm going to say about it because it's going to have to get its own video. And that's glossing over something that's actually quite significant for Infinity. The next one we have is a unit that has confused me, befuddled me, and outfoxed me many times. It is the Post-Humans. One of the things that's confused me about them is that they're one of those units in Infinity that has a unique rule set just to itself. So if you've never faced them, or if you've never played them, so I'm going to try and do a little bit of an explainer on what you get in the box, and also a little bit of explainer on what a Post-Human is. The box contains all 4 proxies that you can see there. So interestingly, there is a Proxy Mark 1, a Proxy Mark 2, a Proxy Mark 4, and a Proxy Mark 5. There may be some lore as to whatever happened to Proxy Mark 3, maybe he was left at home, but is not on the list and isn't in the box. What happened to Mark 3? But Post-Humans, effectively, they have a special rule called G-Jumper. And before I jump into the profiles themselves, what G-Jumper enables you to do, the best way to imagine G-Jumper is maybe a Ghost in the Shell type effect. What a player using Post-Humans will do, they have to have a minimum of 2 proxies on the table, I think a maximum of 3, and effectively they are shells. So in their active turn, what a player will do is put like an active token next to whichever proxy the ghostish thing the Post-Human has embodied. So they've gone, here's my armor, here's my skin, it's a husk, I'm now in that, and now I can do stuff now that I embody it. And so when the order is spent, they will then activate that Post-Human, or that proxy, do all of its things, normal or trooper type stuff. But then what they have the ability to do is the next time they spend an order is that they could activate a different proxy, and that the ghost jumps into that proxy and then activates that one, leaving the empty shell of what they had just been using behind. So in the active turn, that's fairly straightforward. And then in the reactive turn, the proxy that has the Post-Human in it, or the active one, or the embodied one, can ARO like it's a normal trooper, because effectively it is. The shells that exist on the table, they can't shoot, they can dodge or I think reset. Any inactive proxies that react an ARO can only declare a dodge or a reset. That would be the irritating thing, is that you're going, oh, I'm giving these proxies, but they're not doing anything. There's only actually one proxy you need to worry about, and that's the one with the active trooper or the active proxy token next to it. So hopefully that demystifies posthumans and proxies a little bit. They actually only generate one order, so it doesn't matter whether they've got 2 or 3 proxies on the table. Only one order is generated effectively for the posthuman that can jump between them. Again, please look in the comments of this video for someone who's actually played. Inside the box, what do you get? You get a Mark 1 engineer with combi rifle, you get a Mark 2 hacker, you get a Mark 2 with multi-sniper rifle, and then a Mark 5 forward observer. So sorry, we don't even get the Mark 4 represented in here, even though there is a Mark 4 proxy. That one is an HMG. The one that's missing is an HMG Mark 4 and a heavy rocket launcher. They're pretty meaty lad. I think these new sculpts are brilliant. They don't necessarily, to me, they don't look like shell enough, and I think that's maybe also why I've been confused when I face them, because they actually look like troopers doing stuff, as opposed to like husks that something could embody. But that's just me and my perception of what a husk effectively would look like, or a proxy would look like. But then this is which is the all-powerful AI that rules the entire human sphere, so who am I to tell it what it should look like? While I'm on the Aleph bandwagon, this box is super meaty. I must admit, I'm a little bit overwhelmed, ever so slightly. I don't want to say emotional, but this is the first time Corvus Belli have actually sent me an action pack, and I think I'm quite happy about it, because Aleph is one that I've always wanted to get into. However, I do have Black Wind, which is 40% of this, and I've got Beyond Black Wind. While I'm incredibly happy to have gotten an action pack, I'm very sad that I made the mistake of collecting all of this already, because this is the way to get into it. I feel like that plus this covers most of your bases. I want to reiterate this just in case you're a new player coming into Infinity. These action packs are not a waste of money at all. These are incredibly effective ways of starting whatever faction you want to get into. They include really cool models, and because the proxying rules are so friendly when it comes to Corvus Belli and Infinity, you can buy this and you can obviously proxy any one of these into any of their variants that you have, because you're going to be providing your opponent with a courtesy list, and it can be whatever you want it to be. That's why this is also really good, is because it gives you the model volume for you to run a list and experiment quite heavily without committing to expansions and beyonds if you're not quite ready to do that. This box is incredible. So definitely, if you're thinking about getting a left, this should be one of the first things you look at. I've worked out the costs of these action packs in a previous video, and they are incredibly cost effective versus buying a whole bunch of the beyonds and other packs as well. Especially as quite a lot of this, like when I've talked about Black Wind, that also came with Hack Islam. So if you are only looking to get into a faction on your own, this is the way to do it. Now we're going to be talking about some units that are very close to my heart because of Torchlight. So that is actually the faction that I was playing in my latest tournament, if it's accurate to say most recent, given how this video is panning out. But Torchlight has been my baby since it was released, and I've loved playing them for so many reasons. And it was only because of the launch of Sandtrap that I stopped playing them, because I wanted to give JSA and now KCF a go. But the Stormbots and the Moonrakers that come in this, you can hit, there's not a lot going on because I've got a huge shock in here, at least for me. The Stormbot is the big one. That is the S4. It has its repeater, BS attack SR-1, which is cool. Obviously didn't have that in M4. This is now a cool addition to M5. And remote presence. This is the heavy rocket launcher that comes in the box, which is a nice unit. I like the +1 burst on it as an active turn. Like deterrent. Like you can run it up. Obviously it's like a 6-4 move. Good BS at BS 13. Armor 3, but it's probably going to die relatively quickly, but you could get it off quite nicely or use it as an ARO piece depending on your playstyle. 31 points for that one. Then we've got 2 FTO versions, which is actually quite a cool little thing that you might want to consider running it as. So that is in, I'm just double checking because it might have changed. No, it's a wild card. So it can go in absolutely any of your fire teams, which could be quite nice. I like the idea of a heavy rocket launcher in a fire team, but the combi rifle could also be quite good because it's got +1 burst. And so getting it in close, it's got 3 armor, isn't to be sniffed at really. And it is a repeater, so I actually feel like that role is one that's worth looking at if you are playing Torchlight. It's having the Stormbot in a fire team that's going to be moving forward. while an S4 is hard to hide, having it as a repeater means that you could be then combining it with Wave Rider. Such a cool hacker. And so having, and maybe even in the same fire team, because you could have that in the Silver Star fire team. The Wave Rider would give that coherency, that bonuses. She's an excellent hacker, and then having this as a repeater means that you're obviously extending your range. So you might want to be putting, and strategically, okay, trying to do this coherently. So when you have a killer hacker, which the Wave Rider is an exceptionally good killer hacker because it has the upgrade to the Trinity, which is the SR-1. When you have a killer hacker, you can get into the zone of control of another hacker, and then it's basically a hack off, effectively. You're obviously catching them in ARO. If it's a killer hacker and they're choosing Trinity, you're doing 3 dice, but you're both on +3. If you're using your repeater to do that, they're effectively hacking you through a firewall, which gives them a -3 negative. So what you can do is be quite clever with positioning. Even though they're in the same fire team, you could stay within coherency, but you could actually be nudging the repeater into the range, and then you could be using hacking through your repeater to be getting the killer hacker or to be getting the thing that you're targeting, whatever that ends up being. So then they're hacking you back with a negative, and you're doing it straight. Just think about that. Now, I think I've got that strategically right. Again, please look in the comments to make sure that I haven't muddled up stacking things. But anyway, the Stormbot is a super cool unit, well worth having a look at taking. The other thing that I like is that combi rifle, because if you are using it in that fire team, you could poke it around the corner. Having that +1 burst could be super useful to use it aggressively. So Stormbot, very cool. The thing that surprised me was the Moonrakers. And the reason that they surprised me is because they are metal minis. I can't remember the last time I had metal remotes to assemble. It probably wasn't that long ago, but it feels like forever because everything that's come through since has been Cytocast, or it's been the new Unicorn type thing. Thinking that the Luduan and the Rushi that I've got, they were the new unicorns, so very good. Metal for the Moonrakers. These are interesting, and I think the reason they're metal is because they're actually technically an S2, even though they're a remote, which is an odd size for a remote to be. They have camouflage single use. They have forward deployment +8 inches, mimetism -3, surprise attack, courage, remote presence. They have mine layer, which is actually how I was using it, was forward, mines, use that, slow down anything that's rushing you trying to get that alpha strike. Heavy shotgun and adhesive launcher rifle are both very cool. So it's that 15 point, 0.5 SWC that I quite like, because for that extra 1 point and that half an SWC, I feel like that mine layer is well worth it with the shock mines. Obviously, you can go a point less and then half an SWC less to just have heavy shotguns and adhesive launcher, and you might want one of each. They are AVA 2, so taking 2 of them isn't a bad idea. The Moonrakers, the Stormbots, excellent additions to Torchlight. I thought they were brilliant when they launched, and I thought they were underappreciated. I ended up using them quite a lot. I love the fact they now have models because I'm proxying them for ages, and these models, would it be bad to call them cute? I don't think it would be bad to call them cute, but there's something about them. The Stormbot actually looks like fairly baller, but the Moonrakers with their little tiny little chubby wheels, I don't know, cute is definitely the word I would use to them. And then I'm going to briefly talk about some Warcrow stuff. I don't know Warcrow very well at all. However, I am, as I always say, beginning to regret this decision to a degree. And I think it's only because I've gone so far into sci-fi for my gaming that the idea of getting into fantasy is a bit alien to me. But the Northern Tribes, battle-scarred, they look amazing. I don't know with any fantasy, and this is my problem with Warcrow, is that it looks so cool that if any fantasy game was going to tempt me into playing fantasy, it's going to be Warcrow. Because every time I see the minis, and especially these Northern Tribes, I'm like, do I need to look into this a bit more? Do I need to start playing some Warcrow? I did play the Dungeon Crawler, and I loved that because that was very Gloomhaven-esque for me. Obviously, this is now going from Warcrow Adventures into actually like Warcrow proper. And they've got the Hegemony Aggressors, which very human, very fluffy. It's what I would imagine humans to be in a real fantasy, where they just look like they would get munched down like an old Kit Kat. And especially against something like these Northern Tribes, which would just take one look at their puffy sleeves. Just, what are you doing? It's super cool. I'm going to do a bit of research on what these guys are special at and everything, but I would love to hear are you playing Warcrow? Like, watching this, bear in mind this is mostly December releases for Infinity. Are you playing Warcrow? Have you made the transfer over from Infinity across to Warcrow? How people are getting into Warcrow or all that sort of stuff if you've got a gaming group locally that play it. I really want to hear that because I think I'm getting more and more curious of Warcrow. I don't know if this is a ploy by Corvus Belli. Let's just send him a box. Send him a box of this and maybe he'll drop Infinity and his entire channel and start becoming Warcrow gamer. But I don't think that's going to happen today at least. Because if it takes me 2 months to go through December releases for Infinity, what chance do I have of staying on top of Warcrow releases? Thank you so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. I've got some assembly to be doing now because there's so much in there that I actually play and have been playing for a while and I've been having to proxy. And now that there's models here, I've got to get them assembled. I've got to get them painted. I've got to get them on the table because they are beautiful. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back soon with another video.